Hey man, here are 3 things that are driving your wife away from you and solutions for each one. Let's do it. First up, you lack integrity. You don't do what you say you are going to do. You're not a man of your word. And it could be small things, it could be big things. It could be that you said you're going to go take the trash out and you never really get around to it. The garbage man comes in the morning and it's not taken care of, right? That's the small stuff. The big stuff could be, I'm going to pick up the kids on the way home from work and you forget and your kids are stranded there. Or I say I'm not going to cheat on you and then you do, right? You're not a man of your word, and that makes her lose respect for you. Second thing, you're apathetic as fuck. Allow yourself to see things from her perspective and that she has experiences that are also challenging despite you busting your ass at work and doing all this stuff. You don't complain about it, so you don't want to hear her complain about it because everybody's responsible for their own stuff, as you might put it. But over time, that lack of connection where you see her living in her lane and you living in your lane and not wanting to go and sit with her in her stuff and maybe welcome her in for your stuff causes a disconnect over time. That apathy will kill your marriage. Third thing, you are emotionally unavailable, and that wouldn't make you a rare case because most men are to a certain degree. Society has raised us from boys to young men that we should kind of shut down our emotional selves. It's not valuable. We want you to build stuff, make stuff, all of those things. So we tend to shut down and not really practice our emotional self. But the unfortunate part is when you become married and you find yourself in this relationship for a long time and then you start a family, you have these relationships that you really, really care about. And emotions are like the language of relationships. If you're not bringing anything to them emotionally, you're just kind of a cog in the machine. You're just someone that they are relying on for food and shelter, all that stuff, but you're not really connected to them. And that's going to create a disconnect and a distance over time within your marriage. All right, let's talk solutions. The first one, lack of integrity. It just means that you need to start keeping promises, small ones, to yourself, to your wife, to your kids, to your boss, to your parents. If you say you're going to do something, you need to start following through and being very intentional about that. You don't let one slide and think, I got away with one. She didn't yell at me this time, so I can probably get away with it again. We don't want that type of behavior. We need to dig in and be very intentional about what comes out of our mouth, what we say we're going to do, and how we follow through with that. Because as we start doing that more consistently, she builds respect for you, and that's what you want over time, right? Second one, if you're an apathetic bastard, I'm sorry, that was mean. You need to shift into empathy. You need to consider what she's experiencing and try to put yourself in her shoes, and by doing so, 2 things get to happen. First, she feels seen, she feels heard, which is a beautiful thing. It's going to make her feel more connected to you. And second, by demonstrating that you're willing to go there and be empathetic to her situation, she also will be willing to do so for you, because within a healthy relationship, there is reciprocity. So you get to demonstrate like, hey, this is how we're going to behave within this relationship. I'm going to be empathetic to you, and in turn, that would be great if you could do the same for me. Third thing, being emotionally unavailable. How do we change that? How do we shift that? First, you need to be willing to open up a little bit. And I don't mean that you need to cry on her shoulder and tell her your life story and all about your hopes and fears and dreams and all that stuff. You can if you want to, but it's not required to be emotionally available. All it really is that when she asks you about your day and something's bugging you, whether it be about work or about the kids, like, you open up and talk about that so that she doesn't start telling her own stories about what's going on within you and start responding and reacting to what she thinks is going on. By giving her your reality, she can see it for what it is and not spin out over what she thinks is actually happening. And I have worked with hundreds of men over the last 7 years of running the Evolved Man here. I know that intimacy is a big thing. Physical intimacy in particular within marriage is something that guys really want to see. And if you want that within your marriage, you have to understand that long-term relationships and marriages build intimacy through their emotional bonds and their willingness to show up and have space within each other and show and give space for each other. So by doing so, by just letting her in a little bit, bits and pieces, you start to flex that muscle a little bit, you're going to become more connected to your wife, and that builds intimacy long term as well. So there's that. All right, now take this advice and run with it, or don't. But if you want to stay married and want to have a connected marriage, not just kind of survive being married and say in 30 years or 50 years that, hey, we stuck it out, we're still married. Do you want to just stay married, or do you want to have a connected, passionate, fun, playful marriage? Because if you do, you're going to want to take the advice that I've shared here and actually do something with it. Okay? And if you know that you struggle with this stuff and you need some support so that you can live with more integrity, be emotionally available, and also show some empathy within your marriage, then I suggest you go below, hit up our calendar, get on the calendar with myself and the Evolve Man team, and we'll help you from there. Okay? All right.